Namaskar and welcome to In Focus, the special session of Parliament held to commemorate the 50th anniversary of India's independence attracted a lot of attention, but exactly how much did it achieve? And will all the debates, all 65 hours of them, actually translate into action? Here to explore those two critical questions is the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the gentleman who many think was the moving force behind the session, Purno Sangma. Mr. Speaker, I want later in this interview to talk about some of the special issues that cropped up in the session and some of the things that you have been talking about. But first, as the person responsible for the session, let me ask you, did it live up to your expectations?
Well, when I conceived this idea of having a special session, I had two objectives in mind. One, to have a serious debate and thereby trying to raise the standard of debate, the quality of debate. And second part of that first objective was to have some sort of an orderly conduct of business. Second objective was to have a serious debate on what we have been able to achieve in the last 50 years and what we should do in future. In both objectives, I didn't have a very high expectation deliberately because my intention was to make a beginning. In the first objective, to raise the level of debate and have a serious discussion on issues of national importance.
Did you achieve those two? Did you raise the level?
I think so.
And did you have a serious discussion?
Oh yes, oh yes. I was very happy to see that every member who participated in this debate, 367 of them, had come prepared. They were with papers, they were with books, they were with statistics, and in fact, a senior member like Mr. Naval Kishore Sharma, in fact, told me that even when he was preparing for his master's degree final examination, he didn't read that much. He did this time. And therefore, I must say, I'm talking in a comparative manner, that by and large, debate had quality if you compare it with the past. Past, I'm talking about my tenure as Speaker. On the second one of the so-called vision for the future that you're talking about, I don't think the vision for next century can come in 1 week's debate. In fact, the vision will come after 1 year's debate. What we have done in Parliament is just the launching of a national debate.
You said a very interesting thing. You've in fact taken the words right out of my mouth. Many of the papers said this Parliament session was devoid of vision. Your resolution at the end talks about an agenda for India, but it's not inspiring. It doesn't have a dream that it holds out.
I don't agree with that. If you have to understand the resolution, perhaps you have to read it again and again, again and again. Even myself, who have been associated with the drafting of the resolution, the more I read it, the more I understand what it means.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose of an agenda for India? If you have to read it again and again and again and again, then doesn't that defeat its purpose?
It doesn't. It doesn't. You see, when the Parliament of India is passing a resolution, a Parliament cannot go into details. It can only spell out what would be our objective in future. That this Parliament and the resolution has talked about probity in public life. You see, which is a national debate.
You say it
we are talking about transparency. We are talking about integrity.
But Speaker,
in a much positive manner.
You're talking about probity, you're talking about transparency, but those are cliches. The Indian Express said this was all, I quote, platitudinous bunk.
Well, I don't care what Indian Express has said. My target is not Indian Express at all. My target is the people of India. When in my opening remarks I said, today we need to have a second struggle for freedom, I am only calling upon the people for sacrifice, for more hard work. That's all I'm calling.
Okay, you say that the people of India were your target. Let me put something else to you. By your own figure in your own speech, it costs 7,000 rupees a minute.
Yes.
65 hours by my calculation comes to over 27 crore.
I don't know what, I don't know, I'm very poor in mathematics, but it's worth spending.
It was worth spending?
Yes.
You have no doubt about that?
Not at all. No doubt about this at all.
Then let me play devil's advocate on one other issue.
Yeah.
The paper said that the MPs who spoke, you said 365 of them, weren't really interested in the debate or the issues of the discussion. They were interested on either being seen on TV or in appearing in your commemorative volume.
Not at all. Not at all. You see, for the first time, we have a record sitting for continuously 22 hours. Okay? It went up to 8:30 or around 8:30 in the morning. I don't think anybody was awake at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning. There were some people, you know. But the members of parliament, if they had wanted that they should be seen by the whole nation when they speak, nobody would be willing to speak at 6 o'clock in the morning.
So the papers are being unfair?
Well, I read about a dozen newspapers in the morning, but I also receive hundreds of telephone calls from all over India.
Okay,
what is important for me is the reactions of the hundreds of them who ring me up on telephone, who write me letter, then perhaps what is written.
You're smiling, Speaker Saab. Let me read out to you what one of your MPs said in Parliament. It was Rita Verma, the BJP MP, and she's quoted in the paper saying, I quote, "We sat bored whilst others were speaking. It's my turn to bore them now." That clearly suggests all she wanted was to be making her presence felt. She wasn't contributing.
I wouldn't say that. This is what has been quoted in the editorial in Hindustan Times today. I have read that also. And I think she was just saying it in a very lighter way. I don't think so.
I mean, she was making a joke. She wasn't making a serious point.
I don't think so.
You don't think you're excusing her?
No, no.
There's a look of indulgence and acceptance and tolerance on your face. You're not being kind.
Well,
you are being kind. What you're saying is, forgive the remark. She may have said it, she didn't mean it.
I don't think she meant it.
Okay. Let's move then to some of the substantive issues that came up during this session. One was the question of criminals in politics. Let me ask you, do you think this is really a serious issue that should be tackled?
I don't know how serious it is. It's not possible for me to say or quantify how serious it is, but I think it has been made serious.
Do you think it's been rightly made serious?
Quite possible.
Let me put something to you. Election Commissioner Krishnamurthy says that there are serious criminal charges against as many as 40 Lok Sabha MPs. Can you confirm that figure?
I don't know. I don't know. I have not only read Mr. Krishnamurthy's statement. In fact, at the moment, I am also reading a book written by some Mr. Ghosh. I don't know him. He sent a copy of his, where he has given details of these 40 people. You know, well, I am yet to verify. But when you come to the question of qualification and disqualification of a person to be a member of parliament, at the moment, we have to go by what is provided in the Constitution. We have to go by what is provided in the People's Representation Act. And what Election Commission has said, if we have to carry it out, I think with my limited knowledge of law, we will have to amend the Constitution of India, which lays down the qualification for being nominated to be a candidate for the membership of the House.
Would you be in favor of such an amendment?
I will be, certainly.
So you would support an amendment of the Constitution as well as the Representation of People's Act to keep out people with criminal records?
I will be very happy. I will be very happy to, if it can be achieved. But
will you take the initiative amongst parties as Speaker?
But my strong view is that such problems has not been solved by legislation. And I don't think we can solve this problem by legislation. That is why what I have been emphasizing, that if criminalization has to be rooted out in politics, if corruption has to be rooted out, you know, from the process of election.
It has to be voluntary.
Or it has to be voluntary, not voluntary exactly. I think we have to...
Self-regulation?
Self-regulation by the political parties. The major role have to be played by the political parties.
Speaker, can I pick up on two things you said? You did first say that you would be very happy to coordinate steps as Speaker to change the Constitution if it works.
If it works.
So, does that mean that you will actually initiate steps as Speaker to get the parties to agree to a change of Constitution?
I will.
And you will use the leverage and position of Speaker to do so?
I will, to the best of my ability.
And you will also use your influence as Speaker to try and get coordination to change the Constitution if need be?
I think before, what is required at this stage, is to carry on the debate a little further and find out what is the mind of the political parties. As far as I have understood from this debate, the special session of the debate, there is a desire on the part of the political parties that something concrete has to be done in that direction.
But this is it. You see, if something concrete has to be done, most Indians think that something concrete can't be self-regulation because parties won't regulate themselves.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that.
But if they will, why haven't they done it up till now?
Well, there must be some compulsions.
Such as?
The whole system has to be looked into. The whole system has to
This
be
is
looked
it. You
into.
see, it's such a systemic change that you want,
Yeah.
that you can't ask, forgive this metaphor, thieves to regulate themselves. You really need someone from outside to do it, which is why you need legislation or constitutional amendments.
No, I am not saying that. What I am saying is legislation is needed, but legislation alone cannot solve this problem. What is more important is the initiative taken by the political parties to see that in their respective political parties, people with criminal background, the people with a background of corruption do not get into their party and do not get chance to influence the political
I understand, Speaker Saab.
That's
What you're
what I'm
saying, I understand. You're saying a constitutional amendment is needed, but it's not enough. You also need a change of heart.
Absolutely.
But just so that I'm clear, you will use your influence as Speaker to coordinate the parties and push towards a speedy constitutional amendment to achieve this purpose. You won't let time drag.
Well, the very purpose of the special session was that. I don't want to promise too much, but I'll see what I can do about it.
But you'll keep cracking the whip from your side.
I hope so.
Good.
I think so.
Let me then...
I intend so.
You intend so. That's very important. At that critical moment, we have to take a quick commercial break, Speaker Saab, but I want to continue by talking about the other important issue, which is corruption, immediately afterwards. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute to carry on our discussion with the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Welcome back to part 2 of our discussion with the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. Mr. Sangma, the second big issue that concerned the special session was corruption. In fact, it's a national issue at the moment. But does it worry you that although people said a lot about it, virtually no one proposed any effective remedy for tackling it?
You can say that. You can say that. There are many members of parliament who had made a lot of suggestions. The point is that the suggestions that had been made by the honorable members on the floor of the House had not come in that specific words that they have used if you talk about the resolution as such. But we did discuss about corruption, and it did get incorporated. The spirit of it got incorporated in the resolution itself. But you see, this is a issue. I think everybody is concerned about it.
Let me put you one of the proposals that Mr. VP Singh in an interview to us 3 weeks ago made, and it echoes what Mr. Vajpayee said in Parliament recently. He called for state funding. Would you support that?
Personally, I have got my doubts. You see, personally, I have got my doubts about state funding of elections.
Why?
It's not going to be practical. It's not going to be practical.
Because of the sums involved?
Because of the sums involved and because of the complications that our electoral process, That is why our electoral process has to be looked into. That's why in the resolution itself, we call for electoral reforms.
So explain more. In what ways does the electoral process need to be looked into to overcome corruption?
Today, the manner in which we conduct elections, you see, is very expensive, that one has to go from one place to another and organize public meetings. You know, it involves a lot of money. Can we, instead of doing so, do it through electronic media?
So TV election.
Yes, yes. Instead of candidates going place to the people, can the communication between the candidate and the people be through electronic media, which many Western countries have done?
But won't you
I'm
lose?
sure that if we are able to do that, the expenditure on elections will come down. And once we do that, you know, even the type of, you know, the banners, the type of posters, the type of flags that we use is so expensive, you know, so expensive. Either you bear it yourself or you do your political party bear it after money is being spent there, you know.
Tell me something
Now,
else.
I have myself experimented on that. In fact, you know, in the last election, I addressed just one public meeting.
But suppose I say that Meghalaya is a small state where this is possible. Is it possible in UP?
No, small states are much more difficult for campaign. I have to, if I have, my constituency is so big with thinly populated constituency. You know, if I go to a village with 10 families or 15 families, if I have to go to the next village, I have to go 40 kilometers, and again I get there 15 to 20 families.
Okay.
It's horribly, you know, expensive.
Okay. I accept your point. Let me put to you another possible way that Mr. VP Singh has talked about. He says the other way of tackling corruption is to make it compulsory for MPs to declare their assets and rigorous imprisonment if they do so falsely or wrongly.
That will be very good if it can be done.
Would you support it?
I will support, certainly, that's a good idea, but then the question is whether we are able to implement it. So many laws have been passed. I have an experience on the laws passed because the area where the country has passed maximum number of laws is in the field of labor. I have been 9 years labor minister, and I have seen how the laws are implemented in this country.
So you think MPs or those who want to will find a way around?
You look, who doesn't know in this country, when we launched what you call something about land, well, you know, land reforms. Land reforms.
They were honored in the breach. Let me come to something where perhaps your attitude would be very different. We're talking about corruption, and everyone says that at the individual level, the best way of tackling corruption is to give people a proper salary so that they're not tempted to make illegal money. Would you say that even after the recent increases in MPs' allowances, the salary that an Indian MP gets is fitting of the job he's doing and that it's a proper salary?
I agree with you that members of parliament are not getting adequate salary. Today they are getting 1,500 rupees per month.
1,500?
1,500 rupees. And the allowances that they get, 6,000 rupees from this month onwards they were getting, the constituency allowance. Thousands of people coming to the members' house, both in Delhi and in their constituency to look after them and also for me. It is grossly inadequate, I must say that.
Is it more? Is it grossly unfair?
Also grossly unfair.
Would you go further by giving such a miserable salary, and I
Yes.
use that word deliberately, such a
Yes.
miserable salary,
Yes.
is it not disrespect to Parliament?
It is, I strongly feel it is. But somehow, you know, we have a tendency of becoming hypocrites. You know, we want to show something to the world and do something to the world. I have been pleading that members of parliament must be given adequate salary, you see.
Mr. Speaker, at the moment an MP's salary is 1,500 rupees a month.
Yeah.
In my company, an office peon earns more. What do you think MPs should be paid?
You see, that is precisely the point which I have been trying to make, and I have been trying to make the authorities concerned understand about this. See, today, if you talk about warrants of precedence, the members of parliament is above the secretaries to the government of India. But when it comes to the salary, that the members of parliament gets only 18% of what the secretaries to the government of India get. My proposal to the government is, if not more, the salary of the members of parliament should be equal to the salaries of the secretaries to the Government of India plus 1 rupee more.
You've said it's grossly inadequate,
Yeah.
it's unfair, it's disrespect to Parliament. You're Speaker of Parliament.
Yeah.
You're the voice of the MPs. But what do you plan to do about it?
Well, you know, with great difficulty, I got a little bit of increase of their allowances. I'm not even able to get the increase of their salaries. I have been pleading with the government. And
What does the government say?
Government, I don't know. Government has been just keeping quiet about it.
I mean, they have not replied?
There were two parts of recommendations which has gone from the joint committee of the two houses of parliament, which I said it was quite fair suggestion for them. One part was for increase of the salary and another was the increase of the allowances. The government has accepted the increase of allowances, but they have not yet accepted the increase of the salaries.
Why aren't you, as Speaker, raising your voice in protest?
Well, everywhere Speaker also should not be seen to be, you know.
But you're prepared to accept this gross inadequacy, this unfairness?
Let us see. And unfortunately, people have got that impression also that the members of parliament are getting a lot of money and all. It's not true.
Do I get the impression that though you don't want to take a high-profile stand, because that may be the wrong political thing to do, behind the scenes, you're working on the government?
No, I don't work. I never work behind the scene. I'm very transparent in my views. I'm very transparent in my action.
So here you're prepared to accept an injustice.
Yes, I have been saying so.
But you're accepting the injustice.
Of course. I've said so in many times, in many occasions.
Why? You're not helpless.
No. I mean, after all, ultimately, it has to be done. I requested the Prime Minister to come and see me on this issue, and I discussed with him. In fact, the first time when the suggestion went, they did not agree to the suggestion.
When you requested...
It is only when I had requested the Prime Minister to come to my chamber and said, then this is the list that you can do for the members of parliament, why you're not doing it.
And then
only it was done.
But then he only agreed to increase the allowances, not the salary. So what did you say to him?
Maybe they have their own problems after all, you know.
Did
financial problems the country is facing.
Did his answer to you satisfy you? Clearly not. Clearly not. Okay. But talking about the Prime Minister, let me switch to that because there I'll have to then end the interview. You said recently that the Prime Minister of India should always come from the Lok Sabha, not the Rajya Sabha. Briefly explain to me, why is this important?
I think that is the spirit of the Constitution and that is the spirit of the parliamentary democracy.
That the people's house should elect the Prime Minister?
Yes, that the Prime Minister of the country, who is the head of the government, in a democratic country, the head of the government should belong to a house of the people.
Can I say something? We used to have a...
But if you read the Constitution, in the letters of the Constitution, doesn't prevent anybody from becoming the Prime Minister of this country.
It doesn't even in England, but the Prime Minister there always comes from the House of Commons.
Yes. Therefore, when we talk about Constitution, you know, I think it is better that we talk about law and Constitution, we talk about spirit of the Constitution rather than the letter of the Constitution.
But you know, Speaker...
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
the letter of the Constitution says anybody can become Prime Minister. But the spirit of the Constitution is that he must belong to the House of the People.
Breaking the spirit of the Constitution is something that the Prime Minister should never be seen to be doing. Your smile and laugh says it all. Mr. Deva Gowda had to get elected to Parliament. He could have chosen to get elected to the Lok Sabha. He deliberately chose the Rajya Sabha.
Well, I don't want to go into the details, but I have spoken about my idea, my principle. That's all.
Many people will understand and interpret what you're saying for themselves. And your laugh, Speaker, says it all. I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking so openly, even if at times in code, to us. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week with another interviewee. But for today, from the Speaker's chambers in the Lok Sabha, goodbye.